thank you for joining today's session. One of the most significant regulatory shifts we've seen in years, the Economic Crime and Transparency Act, and what it means for verifying the identity of directors and persons with significant control. For those of you that don't know me, I've worked in the KYB space now for over 20 years. And I'll be honest with you, I've always been quite shocked at just how easy it's been for bad actors to exploit the UK company registration system. It's been possible for individuals to incorporate companies through Companies House with little or no ID verification. And the result has basically enabled people to commit millions of pounds worth of fraud, which we've recently seen with the coronavirus loan scheme. It's a loophole that we've all been aware of, and it's been around for far too long. But we're pleased to let you know that changes are here. With the new Economic Crime and Transparency Act, Companies House will now have powers to verify people's identities, challenge filings, even reject and remove information that doesn't stack up. So for the first time, directors and PSCs will now be required to verify their identity. So today, with Mark's help, we'll be unpacking exactly what it means for regulatory firms, company formation agents and accountants and law firms with these new changes. So firstly, Mark, I want to thank you, not just for your time today. I know we've been liaising quite a lot over the last couple of weeks over emails with questions back and forth, and you've really helped us shape the project that we're going to deliver to the market, or that we are delivering to the market now, specifically around questions around name changes, Group B documents, address history. I know I've been one of your greatest pains in your side, so I really appreciate that. So what we're going to do today, guys, is just to make you aware as well, there's a chat function at the top of the screen. If you do have any questions, pop them in there and we will endeavour to come back to them at the end of the presentation. I'm going to hand over to Mark shortly now. He'll go through his side of the presentation, and then I'll just give you a very brief snapshot of the product that we're delivering to help solve those issues. And then hopefully we'll come back to the questions once we've got time at the end. If we do run out of time, though, we will endeavour to come back to you on all of those questions within the next 24 to 48 hours. So I'm going to pass over to you now, Mark, for your presentation.
Okay, so are you able to move this for me, Rian, or does it do I do it for myself?
Yeah, I'll control it for you, Mark.
Oh, brilliant, thank you. Okay, so I won't go into sort of who Companies House are, because I'm sure that everybody on this call already knows who we are. I think this is more of a preamble to sort of say that I don't think it's much of a secret that the data on Companies House over the years is perhaps not as accurate as it could be. And that's not because the registrar is rubbish at what she does, although some may disagree with that. It's simply because the registrar, up until ECCTA came in, didn't have the power to sort of refuse or reject information that was properly given to her. ECCTA has changed that, given the registrar far more powers. So hopefully going forward, as we start implementing all of these changes as a combined piece of work, it should start improving the accuracy and the sort of validity of information on the register. So as I said, the registrar has got more powers to play, more significant role in tackling economic crime with the powers that have been given to her. And I say over time, these measures will lead to improved transparency, more accurate and trusted information, and then as a result will hopefully drive up sort of confidence in the UK economy and increase the value of the register for businesses and citizens sort of in the UK and all over the world, really. Next slide. To sort of underpin that, the registrar has some new objectives. These are on the face of the Act. So any person required to deliver a document does so, and that they meet the sort of requirements for proper delivery. Information, she has to ensure information contained in the register is accurate and the register contains everything it ought to. She has to ensure the records kept by the registrar do not create a false or misleading view to the public, which those three combined are quite powerful. And we've also been given the tools to sort of help us to try to carry that out. And then the fourth one is that she has to prevent companies and others from carrying out unlawful activities or facilitating the carrying out of unlawful activities. And again, if we start to see those types of behaviours, we've got powers and enforcement capability to be able to deal with them. Next slide. So the first set of changes, which seems an absolute lifetime ago now, were introduced in March 2004 to 2024. Sorry, it's a different act. So these included greater powers to query, remove, and refuse information, and we have been using those powers quite effectively, and including the ability to investigate and enforce. We had powers to do those things, but obviously with new legislation, we've got broader powers and more things to actually investigate and enforce. So upcoming changes. So on the 18th of March this year, we launched the authorization for corporate service providers in keeping with AML supervision arrangements. So this is where ACSPs can actually start to register as an ACSP. This is voluntary at the minute, so really we're only expecting ACSPs to register if they want to start undertaking identity verification for their clients and providing that to the registrar, because that's all you can do via that process at the minute. But later on, sort of spring, summer 2026, it'll become a must to be an ACSP if you want to file Companies Act information on the register. And I'll talk a little bit about that in the timeline. And then ID verification, we launched voluntary IDV on the 8th of April. And by voluntary IDV, I mean that it's not a mandatory requirement to provide sort of verified status information on the register yet, but we've given a long lead-in time between now and sort of late autumn this year for people to get their identity verified, to get their personal codes, so that when we do launch and mandate it, that they'll be able to provide that, sort of incorporate new appointments and provide their verified status by the anniversary of the first confirmation statement post go live. So it's important that people do that beforehand. It's not a sort of inline journey as part of an incorporation journey for you to sort of go on IDV and then just carry on. They are two separate functions, because the identity sort of information gets sent to the individual whose identity has been verified and not to the agent. So the roadmap, we've already launched authorized corporate service registration, and that's been really successful in terms of the numbers that we've registered. A couple of weeks after that, then we released the voluntary period for IDV. This gives a long lead time then to sort of autumn winter this year, where identity verification will become compulsory for over 7 million sort of directors and PSCs. It's at that point that, as I said, incorporations, new appointments, and the sort of requirement to deliver identity verification credentials for people who are already on the register will kick in. That will be a sort of a period of about a year, so autumn winter 2026, where we'll ingest all of that IDV information for all of the directors and PSCs, LLP members on the register, probably into early 2027 because of late filing of information for those whose confirmation statements are right at the end of that period. But by then, we will know who on the register as identity verified, who is outstanding, and then we'll start through this period, we'll then start thinking about compliance and enforcement for those who should have IDV'd at that point, but who haven't and are sort of in default. And then spring, summer 2026, so in the middle of that period, we are then looking to mandate presenters. And it's at that point that every presenter will need to give us information. So if you're a director, a PSC, or an employee of a company filing for yourself, then you'll need to provide your identity verification personal code. And if you're an authorised corporate service provider filing on behalf of another company, you need to provide us with your authorised service provider credentials. ACSPs went live 18th of March, as I keep mentioning. We have registered. I sent this over to Ria and a colleague sort of earlier in the week. We have registered over 3,000 ACSPs as of last night. So there are a lot of people sort of undergone the application. There is quite a high attrition rate in terms of rejects, and I'll talk a little bit about that in a minute. And to go with the registration, where we know more about the presenter, Companies House has also the power to suspend or deauthorize authorized corporate service providers. So we need the ability to keep the ACSPs clean. So where the ACSP sort of closes its business for whatever reason, becomes insolvent, or normal business things, then we'll be able to cease and suspend the ACSPs for that. But we also have the power and the ability, if we see suspicious activity at the scale that's impacting the public register, to be able to work with the ACSP, and if they can't resolve the issues either through sort of willfulness or a lack of communication, we have the power to be able to suspend and ultimately cease that ACSP to prevent further harm to the public. From an IDV perspective, ACSPs will be expected to sort of verify individuals to the same standard as those verifying directly with Companies House. But an ACSP has a much, much bigger toolbox available to it to get their clients to that standard. So if they've got the technology, reading the sort of NFC chips, and I think that's the one acronym that I don't know what NFC stands for, so don't put it in the chat because I won't be able to answer you. But it's the technology that there's a little chip inside a passport that most phones and things are able to read the data off that chip. Yeah, it contains information specifically about the individual. So if you've got that technology and you can sort of validate that person's address for the last 12 months, that's gold standard. Happy days. You can provide the information to the registrar, make the statement, and we will issue the personal code to your client and give you notice that that's been done. If the passport doesn't have an NFC chip in it, you can sort of, and you've got the technology, you can read the image off the passport, do a sort of facial recognition, and then add other information to that to get the person to the standard. That's perfectly fine as well. And there are lots of other ways of getting individuals to the standard if you've got a mix of documentation, and that's all set out in our guidance on gov.uk. Next slide. So IDV is huge. Okay, so there's about 7.4 million existing officers, PSCs, LLP members on the register, and we'll start rolling out the requirements in phases from autumn this year. Roughly, I worked it out, and this maths is probably wrong, but it's about 616,000 or 666,000 companies per month. If you just divided that by 12, which is an astronomical number of companies to actually get to comply within a month. Yeah, and if those companies have got more than one director, then or PSE, then that number of 616,000 sort of escalates up into the numbers of transactions that we've got to get right and on the register. So we've rolled that out in terms of the anniversary of the confirmation statement, which spreads that load, over the 30 odd days of the month. That'll sort of work its way through over that transitional year and into 2027, at which point we should know in every instance where we've got sort of directors and PSCs who are or aren't identity verified, and we'll probably be well into our sort of compliance action then to start clearing up the register. I think two things. They are able to get their identity verified through one login, so which is a free service. As I say, that's a process where the passport or the driving license is used to sort of validate the information. There's a selfie bit involved. There's some other bits under the hood that check that information and get that person to the standard. Once that passes, the data hits our system. There's no human intervention, and the personal code gets sent to the person whose identity has been verified. As part of that process, the individual will also set up a one login account. Okay, so at the end of the process, and I've had this question asked a lot, at the end of the one login process, there's no email with the unique identifier sent to the individual. It's just a screen at the end that says, this is your unique identifier. Now, the reason that there isn't an email is because they've got the one login account, then they can access the unique identifier through their own one login account in information about themselves. So that's why that process doesn't have the email. When they go through an authorized corporate service provider, then not only do they give us the identity verified information from the passport or the driving license or whatever documentation, the person can also then provide the registrar with an alternative name they wish to be known as on the register. So if they are known professionally in a maiden name or an alternative name, they can give that to the ACSP. We'll ingest it, and then when they file the company's documents in that name, when we check the records, that'll actually work and it'll go through the system fine. Through one login, you don't give us an alternative name, but again, when you file the information, if the name differs professionally to your verified information, you'll be able to give us some information about why that name has changed. And provided there's nothing controversial or offensive or profane in that name, then that will go through the system perfectly fine. So the system is sort of being set up to accommodate where people's names might differ sort of in their private and their professional life. Excuse me. I think the volumes that we are seeing at the minute is about 11,000 being IDV through one login and about 800 through ACSPs at the minute. So not huge numbers, but I think people aren't sort of really gearing up for IDV in terms of, oh, that's a long way away, I am going to worry about it. But what I would say is if you've got clients that are going to go through the one login process, get them to do it early rather than close to the mandation period, simply because if there's a problem with identity verification through one login, and some customers are experiencing that, then they might need to find an alternative way of getting IDV through an ACSP, which might then sort of add time and delay to them being able to incorporate or file a confirmation statement or other things. And then finally, stop me whittering on, is if you haven't already, sign up to subscribe to our newsletters, check out our campaign site on gov.uk. That's where sort of information about all changes to ECCTA will sort of appear. Lots of gov.uk blogs, lots of social media channels, LinkedIn, Facebook, and something else that my colleagues were calling Meta this morning, which I had to ask what Meta was, and they explained it's two it's X and something else combined, and they call it Meta. But those channels are available, and there's lots of information out there. And our guidance is really sort of really sort of concise and informative as well. So if you haven't sort of had that, then please access it via gov.uk. And any questions, then just contact the team at Companies House, or as Rian said, we'll only be too happy to help you.
Brilliant. Thanks for that, Mark. We really appreciate it. And yeah, thank you again. So now, guys, I'm just going to show you what we here at Credas have built to align with the Companies House legislation. As I said, we've been working with Mark and his team over the last couple of months to make sure we align and meet both the Group A documents, where he mentioned the cryptographic NFC solution, and the ability to capture additional documents as well. So what I'm about to show you now and what's on your screen is what your clients will see. So once you've sent an invite out to them, what does the director or the PSC have to do to verify their identity? So initially they'll be asked to complete some personal information. And as you can see there, we've also built in, have they been known by any other names? If they have, they'll be able to complete that here. And we can also add the option to add proof of name change as well. We'll also capture then their address details and verify their address for you. And as you can see, in line with the guidelines, we also request any changes of address in the last year as well. Then when it comes to verifying their identity, obviously the Group A document does prefer a passport. So the user will be asked to capture an image of their passport. They'll then be asked to use the weird and wonderful NFC, the Mark mentioned. And this is where they place their passport up against their mobile phone, and we will read the chip within their passport for them. Should that part pass successfully, they won't then be asked to upload those additional documents from Group B. However, for some reason, if we're unable to verify that chip within the passport, or indeed we've just captured the image of the document, then they will be asked to upload those additional documents. And they can simply select the document from their device, upload, and then the next step in the journey is to actually capture that selfie to make sure that that person was live and present when they're actually uploading those documents and capturing their passport details or their ID documents. And that is it. That is all your director will need to do. So in line with the legislation, we'll verify the identity of the person, verify their address, capture any address details, changes, and also capture those name changes for you as well, all in one journey, leaving all of that information gathering to us. So we're going to move on to a couple of questions now, and I'm aware we are actually running out of time. So I'll run through these as quickly as I possibly can. So bear with me 2 seconds while I just grab them up. The process that ACSPs have to follow once the director's ID has been verified. So how do they then pass that information over to you? I think he's actually experiencing technical difficulties again. Basically what will happen is you guys, once you've registered as an ACSP, you'll need to go onto the company's house login, enter the details of the person. Those details include the first name, surname, and that director code as well as an email address for the director. And then that will email the director their code and they can share that with you then at a later date. The other questions we've been asked is, bear with me 2 seconds. Yeah, will the code be shared with the ACSP as well as the director? That director code actually does belong to the director and it would be up to them to then share that code with the ACSP. And there's been another one as well. Can ACSPs charge for the IDV process? Absolutely, you can charge. So if you want to charge the directors and PSCs, the legislation does allow you to do that as well. There are a couple of other questions. I'm just aware we've run out of time. So like I said, we will come back to you within the next 28 to 48 hours with answers to all of your questions. And again, thank you very much for bearing with us on our technical difficulties today. We really appreciate your time. One of our values here at Credas is to help anyone out, whether they're a client or not. So any questions whatsoever, please get in contact with us at sales@credas.com and we'll happily help you out. Also, if you do want to have a really in-depth look into the project and a full demo, contact us as well. But again, we're here to help, so please give us a shout and thanks again for your time today. Thanks, everyone.